Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Sean's Green Room podcast. Please remember, this is not a comedy show. However, it's a show about the comedy business, where we attempt to pull back the magical veil on the comedy club brick wall, giving you, the listeners, an opportunity to hear the real stories from the artist and the industry directly. Your podcast host has been in the comedy club business for nearly 2 decades. He's worked with comedians like Mitch Hedberg, Bernie Mac, Dave Chappelle, and Jimmy Fallon. Your host, Mr. Sean Traynor.
Well, welcome out, ladies and gents, like always. Another Sean's Green Room podcast. Today is no different with a special guest. This gentleman is a nationally touring comedian and hypnotist. He's been on pretty much every talk show ever on TV.
Except for the really cool nighttime ones.
Nah,
like
we don't want those. We don't want those. You've been on... Specifically, we were just discussing was Space Ghost,
that was fun.
Which doesn't seem like they're going to want to grab a hypnosis comedian, but I am very interested in finding out what is up with Space Ghost.
So it's a very long story, but I'm going to try to keep it sort of succinct. So
Okay.
I used to be a huge Space Ghost fan, and in the day I was married to my 4th wife.
Okay.
Right. And so one day I said to her, I go, you know what, more than anything in the world, what I'd really want to be is on Space Ghost. And she looked me in the eye and she goes, you're nowhere near big enough to be on Space Ghost.
That's
right?
kind of, I
And
see
then,
why you
like,
divorced her.
Oh,
Go
she
on.
was horrible. So like 2 weeks, I'm not joking, like 2 weeks later, I was working at the Punchline in Atlanta, and I had a really good week. And one of the nights after the show, a guy came up to me and he goes, hey, how you doing? I go, good. He goes, I love your show. And I go, oh, thank you. And he goes, I'm the producer of Space Ghost, and we would love to have you on. Like 2 weeks later, after that's coming from my at the time wife. And so we set it up, and so I went there, and the way they work it is you're sitting behind a green screen, or you're sitting in front of a green screen, and they've got like 3 people in different directions, and so and they start firing off questions. So you're looking this way and this way, so like you're talking to Space Ghost and Zorak and whoever else, and I talked to them for like an hour,
Okay.
right, and then they edited my hour down to 3 minutes. So what they did is whatever answers I gave to whatever legitimate questions they asked,
Okay.
they then went back in and dubbed in a different question. So I looked like a complete asshole.
That's, by the way, what we're going to do with this podcast.
Perfect.
Too. So, yeah.
So they contacted me and they go, your episode's going to air, whatever date it was. And I was so excited. Like I invited every person I knew. And so my living room was packed with like 30 people, right?
Okay.
And we were all just sitting there watching Space Ghost. And then my segment came on and they were so fucking mean to me.
Yeah.
I mean, they were really mean. So as I'm watching it, I'm laughing my ass off. And then partway through my episode, my segment, I look around, everybody in the room left.
Oh.
Like they were so embarrassed for me because they didn't get what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And they were huddled in the kitchen.
You walked a room in 3 minutes. That's.
I walked a room in about a minute and a half.
Wow, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so fast forward, like about a year later, I'm working in the DC Improv, and I'm doing a Good Morning DC, like a TV show. And remember the Budweiser guys, like Bud, what, like
The frogs?
the guys that would what's up?
Oh yeah, the What's Up guys. Okay.
Yeah, those guys. So I went to the TV station with the manager of the Improv, and one of the Bud guys looks over and says to the manager, he goes, "Oh my God, is that Flip Orley?" And she goes, "Yeah." And she goes, "Have you seen his show?" He goes, "Show? What kind of show does he do?" And she goes, "Well, how do you know Flip Orley?" He goes, "Oh my God, I saw him on Space Ghost." And Space Ghost was like, he was the top 3 people that Space Ghost was mean to.
Okay.
And she goes, who are the other 2? He goes, the Space Ghost was meanest to Charlton Heston, Tyra Banks, and Flip Orley.
Charleston Heston.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you were saying Space Ghost, how it came all about.
So here's what happened.
What is your knowledge?
This is what they told me. So Space Ghost was a cartoon in the 60s or 70s.
Okay.
And it was actually like a superhero, and he was out in space, he was in whatever. And it never really caught on all that much. And then around the time that Johnny Carson was leaving The Tonight Show,
Okay.
there was a big fight for who's going to get a space. And there was a fight, I guess, between Leno and Letterman.
Right.
And it was a big to-do. And so the guy who ultimately became the executive producer had a dream one night. This is what they told me.
Okay.
Had a dream one night that Space Ghost ended up winning the talk show wars.
Okay.
And he ended up going to the Cartoon Network like the next day, and he pitched the idea of Space Ghost having his own TV talk show.
Okay.
As the talk show winner of the talk show wars. And they were like, we love it. And then they made a show.
It's interesting how things like that come about? Because that's totally crazy. But for them, like some of these things that like the ideas, like I had heard the Dirty Dancing 2, the Havana Nights.
Wait, there was
Yeah. Okay.
Was it really?
Yeah, no. And I heard this from someone that I would assume had accurate information. It was originally written as this girl leaving Cuba with her child and to come to America. And it's this whole like...
Eileen Gonzalez?
I don't know who it was, but the original script. And it was like, it was this sad story. No, it wasn't, by the way, just for the record. It was a sad story about her traveling and escaping and, like the torment that she went through and, saving her child and And like after 3 or 4 different studios rewrote it and kind of shelved it for a little while, brought it back out. Next thing you know, it's Dirty Dancing 2, Havana Nights.
Oh, really?
It was nothing even close to the original script, And I see that crap, with all sorts of movies. But Space Ghost, not...
My understanding with them is the way he pitched the idea, they absolutely ran with that.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah.
So, and then they took the characters. I forget. Zorak was sort of the Paul Schaefer character, I think.
Okay.
And then they had another character, I can't think of his name, who sort of was the producer, sort of off camera. That was sort of the Biff character, I think.
Okay.
And it was just really funny. They just made me look to be such an asshole. And actually, literally about halfway through my interview, they're like, they didn't like me, and they fuzzed me out, and then they fuzzed in Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters.
Did they typically just shit on anybody
Not
that was on
like
the show?
that.
They just took it to another level.
Yeah, they took it to a whole, again, the Tyra Banks, Charlton Heston level.
But the interview was an hour, so they must have liked you in person, I'm assuming.
I thought we had a great time. To me, it was, and I've done a lot of really fun TV, but that was my favorite TV credit.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, then I'll make sure I have that up on the marquee for when you're in town.
My favorite TV experience was actually the Ricky Lake Show.
Okay. All right.
So what we did in this one particular instance, I hypnotized a guy and gave him just a buttload of post-hypnotic suggestions.
Okay.
Right. So when I would do something, he would do something, but I would have to be sort of in his visual eyesight. So then Ricky Lake's show sent him on a blind date with a girl, and they made it to be like a dating show, right? Okay. And so they're at dinner, and it's sort of hidden camera, like I guess Punk'd or what would be in the old days Candid Camera or whatever. And so I was sitting behind the girl who was at the date who had no idea what was going on, right? Okay. And so this guy is having this lovely dinner with this woman, and I'd hold up like one finger, and all of a sudden he'd see a fly going around her face, and he started like swatting at the fly, right?
My gosh.
And then I'd do this, and then all of a sudden he would start doing like Curly from the Three Stooges and like, and so he just was a maniac the entire dinner, but she had no idea why, and she didn't see me feeding him cues.
That's crazy.
It was so much fun.
That is okay. So obviously you're a comedian, number one, because you do have a lot of jokes.
I think I'm damn funny.
I think you're pretty funny.
Well,
but I'm biased because I like you. But the audiences seem to laugh. But hypnotist. Okay. So first of all, like most people think that they can't be hypnotized.
True.
Okay. Which I think we've talked about in the past. Some people can, some people can't. But do you like when you put on a show? Okay, so you have your comedy show and you have some guests that come up on stage. What percentage of them are just bullshitting? Do you think?
By the time the show's really fully involved,
yeah.
I would say maybe one person every like 10, 15 shows, one person every 20, 30 shows. I mean, it's not a lot because, again, the thing of it is I've seen other hypnotists and sort of their persona when they get on stage is, sort of this omnipotent, all-powerful, I can hypnotize anyone.
Right.
And I think they're inviting challengers, and I think they're inviting people to really mess around with their show. Me, on the other hand, I get up and it's not that I'm self-deprecating, but I'm really honest.
Yeah.
So I tell people it's like I have no special powers and I can't make you get hypnotized, and we're really cooperating, and without your cooperation you can't be hypnotized, and if you really don't want to do this, don't come up here. So by the time I ask for volunteers, most of the people that would get up on stage to mess with me, I sort of think the wind has been kind of taken out of their sails.
Okay.
And it's done on purpose because and here's the thing: my show is strictly for entertainment. It's not a seminar, right? It's not a workshop.
And you treat your hypnotized patrons very nicely.
I
I've
try
seen
to,
I've
yeah.
seen some on like TV and different things like that where
They're not nice.
they're completely dicks to them. You
Yeah.
know, like they make them do all sorts of ridiculous stuff. Bark and act like a chicken or whatever.
There's
But-
a show on TV. I don't know which network it's on right now, but it's a show on hypnosis, and I caught a few segments, and it's really mean.
Yeah, yeah, but you treat them with respect. Now, I have seen you for what 19, I think
19,
about
20
19 years. So we got some funny stories from specifically audiences we've been around. But I remember when I was waiting tables, I was off one night. I went up to try to
You
get
did go
hypnotized.
up.
Yeah, and I went up twice. The one time I got up and it was weird. I don't think I was really down. I really wasn't, but I was kind of committed to it.
Right.
So I was kind of bullshitting it, but I did a great job. And I didn't say much, and I didn't do much. But I did go up one time. Either it was before that or after it. And I remember you got to the part where you're like the red light, green light,
Yeah.
and that part you tell them, hey, if I say red, you're gonna smell a terrible odor.
Well, actually, the other way, yeah, green smells horrible, red smells really good. But
Okay.
yeah. Same.
So I remember sitting there, and I wasn't really paying attention to what you said, but you said the word, and I started smelling like the nastiest smell.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God, I'm hypnotized. And then immediately I
The second
wake
you
up
start
and I was
thinking
like,
about
there it was. It's over with. And that might have been the time where I just bullshitted the rest of the way, maybe hoping to get back under or whatever. But yeah, it was interesting how it worked. Like I can't explain it other than saying, I guess it did. So,
Right.
I was trying to see
If you smelled something that wasn't there,
Right.
there's a reason for that.
Right, but the chick next to me was really disgusting looking, so she might have farted. I don't know. It's possible.
That is possible.
Yeah.
The thing of it is people don't expect to be hypnotized. They don't think it's real. And then when they're experiencing hypnosis, they're not asleep or unconscious, so they don't think it's really working.
Right.
And so you're sort of fighting a lot of misconceptions, which is fine. I don't really care. But my show is all about entertainment. So, and that's the whole point I was trying to get back to. I really am hypnotizing people. I really want to work with the most deeply hypnotized people.
Right.
But if someone fools me,
Right.
I don't care.
Right.
And the reason, it's really funny because every once in a while, especially early on, before I sort of figured out how to take the challenge away from people, they really thought they were pulling one over on me.
Right.
And I'd sit there and they go, I wasn't under, and I go, here's the thing. I don't care.
Yeah.
I go, but you're a hypnotist. I go, no, I'm an entertainer, and I use hypnosis as a vehicle.
Right.
But I fooled you. Great.
Good.
Then
Yeah.
who lost out on the good experience?
Yeah.
Like you were up there mugging for your friends, and then all the other people on stage with you had these amazing experiences they can talk about and remember forever.
Right.
And you cheated yourself, and to some degree the audience, I suppose.
Right.
But when the show's over and the week's over, I'm still getting my paycheck and I'm still going on to the next town, and I don't care.
And he probably added some content that was fun,
Sometimes someone's not under, and I know they're not under,
Right.
and so, but I'll let them play along. And then as the show goes on, I'll point out someone who's clearly under, and I go, say, they're under, and I'll point out that someone's not, and I go, they're not. Watch the difference. You can compare and contrast, and
Right.
so the audience gets to sort of see the difference.
Yeah. No. And it's funny because when you do your takedown time, where you're putting them under, I have to get all my staff away from the showroom. I had this box office girl, and she had stepped out of the box office one time, sat back by the soundboard, and then halfway through your show, I'm trying to find her. I can't find her anywhere.
Right.
Here she is at the table, and every time you've told them wake up, her head comes up. She's raising her hand. She's trying to participate from the.
Oh, how funny is
and
that?
I'm just looking like, are you kidding me? Like I had to go hop in the box office and continue selling tickets for her because
That's so
you took her
funny.
down, and it worked. Now I have
Real quick.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a show in Brea, California, the Brea
Okay.
Improv. And the guy who I became ultimately really good friends with, a guy named Mike Monzo, turned out to be really hypnotizable. And he was a sound and light guy. So halfway through the show, I realized he must have been under because he started really messing up the light cues. And so at some point I said to someone at the staff, I go, is Monzo under? And they're like, yeah. And I said to the audience, I go, look, he works here. He's working lights and sound. So if you think he's a shill, I don't need to bring him on stage. However, he's really under. Can I bring him on stage? And the audience is like, yeah. So they had to get someone else to fill in for him.
Right.
And he turned out to be like the star of the show. And one of the last bits I did on stage, I, for whatever reason, made him Santa Claus.
Okay.
And then just to be a dick,
Yeah.
and I'm usually not a dick, but
Yeah,
just to be a dick,
fun dick.
I didn't take the Santa Claus thing away from him. So when the show was over for like the next hour, he was sitting in the office, and he was inviting all the different staff members to come sit on his lap to tell him what they wanted for Christmas.
That's terrible.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Do you remember when we had there was a show and this
I know where
little,
you're going.
Yeah, we had a few of them. But
Okay.
remember the little Asian lady that was
I
the end
don't
of the
know where you're
show, and her husband comes up to us, and he's like, "Hey, where's the hypno guy?" And I'm like, "What's up?" He goes, "He broke my wife," and she was hypnotized, and we took her back to the back, and you tried putting her down or waking her back up. Finally, you took her and walked her out of the building, and then she got back to normal.
Well, that's the fail-proof suggestion: is when you leave this building, no matter what else has happened to this point,
right?
When you leave this building, every effect from hypnosis will be completely gone.
Right.
So at the worst case scenario, if I can do nothing else, if they were really hypnotized, that does fix it.
Yeah. So. Okay, so in regards to...
I thought you were going to go with the other
I got a few. We're going to go there. Okay, so as you started, let's rewind in the comedy business. And so when did you decide you wanted to do hypnosis?
I didn't.
Okay.
So again, everything with me is a really long story, but for brevity, I started taking an interest in hypnosis in elementary school, not because I wanted to be a hypnotist, I just thought it was kind of fun.
Right.
But early on in my life, like 4, 5, 6 years old, I wanted to be a comic, and so from like high school through college, I studied hypnosis a lot, strictly because I thought it was cool.
Right.
And when I was 18 years old, I started doing stand-up comedy.
When you say studied it, I mean, like, was there a class for this or
I
something?
studied with a hypnotist for 3 years privately.
Wow.
And then I studied psychology at University of Arizona.
Okay.
And then I studied some other places, and I have like this library of books. But I mean, I think the one-on-one instruction for 3 years really helped a lot. But it was just like for a lark. I mean, it was fun. And occasionally, especially when I went to college, I worked with people privately to improve their test scores and their study habits and sleeping better and other kind of behavior modification things. Just I was trying to be nice.
Right.
And so I transferred from U of A to ASU in Tempe, Arizona. And I was living with a guy, and I'd been at this point doing like comedy 2 years. And this buddy of mine, he goes, "Why don't you do hypnosis on stage?" And I go, "I don't want to." And he goes, "Why?" I go, "Because I want to be a comic. Like, my focus is comedy." And we went round and round and round like that for about 6 months. And one day I said to him, because he goes, "Try hypnosis." And I go, if I do it once, just one time, will you leave me alone? Like, don't ever bring it up again. And he goes, "Yeah." And so I called up this club named Chuckles. It was predating the Tempe Improv. Okay. It was like a 500-seat room with a huge stage, and they did open mic nights on Monday. Okay. And so I called up this guy and I said, I go, "Can I do on open mic night, can I do hypnosis?" And when he was done laughing, right. I then eventually convinced him I wasn't kidding. And he goes, "Sure, what the hell?" Right. So this one Monday night, I was the last comic in like 12 on an open mic night. And I got up on stage, I'm like 22 years old. All right. And I wore a 3-piece suit because I want to look professional. Of course. And I wore glasses, right? Because I wanted people to take it serious. Yeah. And but I didn't plan a show because I thought when I told people I was going to do hypnosis, they wouldn't believe me, and then I was going to ask for volunteers, and nobody would volunteer, and I would leave the stage humiliated, and at least I could say to my friend, "Don't bug me again." Yeah. So I go, "Can I get volunteers?" And I got like 25 volunteers. Okay. Like the stage filled immediately, and I'm looking at these people like, "Holy shit!" Like I didn't plan a show. Right. So I do this hypnotic induction, and I'm honestly, and I know we're on video now, so I'm watching these people like their eyes rolling up in their head because I'd hypnotized a bunch of people individually, so I know what it looks like. Right. But I'm watching these 25 people just like, and like now 18, 19 out of 25 are hypnotized. And now it's like, I don't know what to do. Okay. So do you remember any of what you... I do. There was a gal who was a very, very, very famous stage hypnotist by the name of Pat Collins. Okay. And I had seen her show before. And if you know anything about comedy, which obviously you do, the cardinal sin, the cardinal rule about comedy, you don't steal people's shit. You're a hack if you steal someone's stuff. And I come from the comedy world, so like everything I do, I try to do very, very originally. Okay. Truth be told, I stole Pat Collins' show. Okay. Like I stole every one of her bits that I could think of. Okay. Just to get through it. And people were laughing, and it was great. And I got off stage, and I started getting job offers like immediately. Okay. From like corporate events and things of that nature. And it was in that moment, it was like, holy shit, I've got to write a show. There you go. But it was really an accident. There you go. Well, you could go back and you're paying royalty to that guy. I'm not. We don't. We're not unfriendly. We just sort of lost touch. Oh, okay. But it's because I don't want to pay him royalty, so I sort of disappeared. Yeah, we're just going to call him John. Okay, so obviously I've seen you for a while, and I've seen bits and things that you do develop and become different. Specifically, vibrating chairs. Oh my God! Yeah. You have one where you were trying to get everybody relaxed, and you have a massaging chair. I don't do that much anymore. Okay. Oh, why would that be? Why would that joke? Why would that bit have changed? And it
time.
wasn't even meant to be a joke. Here's what's funny. So my show is longer than most, right? So I'll get volunteers on stage and I'll tell them, if it doesn't work, you could be on stage as little as like 10 minutes, right? But if you're hypnotized and things are going well and we've got the time, you could be on stage like 90 minutes, 2 hours. Like it's a long show.
Right.
So one night, in fact, I'm in Addison and I thought, well, they've been sitting for a while because the stage is small and they can't get up and move around a lot. So I thought I'm going to do something nice.
So sweet of you.
Yeah. So I'm going to get, and I was very specific. The chair you're seated in when your eyes come open will be from Brookstone.
Okay.
Right. Like I didn't say Condom Sense, and I didn't say, I said Brookstone.
Right.
It wasn't from Adam and Eve. And I go, it'll gently massage. I remember the verbiage, literally. I go, it'll gently massage you on your legs and on your back.
I think everybody heard. Yeah. That seems pretty nice. That's
Brookstone, gently massage legs and back, right? And so the volunteers opened their eyes, and this one woman, I thought she was having seizures. And at first, it's like, we need like a popsicle stick or a spoon so she doesn't like swallow her tongue.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I suddenly realized this lady's having an orgasm.
She's moaning.
Yeah, she's like, ah. And when I suddenly realized, I forgot she was hypnotized, and I just started screaming at her, stop that, you stop that, stop doing that. Because I was embarrassed, and I thought to myself, all these women are going to think I'm a horrible human being. And she completed the task. And, and I really felt like just this creepy, gross, but it was such an innocent, honest accident. Yeah. And what really surprised me was how many women came up to me after the show like, I'd like a chair like that.
Yeah. And after that, you, of course, added a little bit of in a non-sexual way.
I did.
Yeah.
For just that. And in fact, it's really funny. A few years back, I do a bit where there's a virtual reality roller coaster.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So I'm doing the roller coaster at the Tempe Improv. By the way, I work improvs a lot, like the improvs. And so there's twists and turns and dips and loops and all this stuff. And then when the ride comes to an end, I talk to the volunteers. I go, what do you think of the ride? And it's like, oh, I love the 2 loops. And so I get to this one woman and I go, what do you think of the ride? And she got really serious. She goes, I had an orgasm.
Okay.
Which is, and I tell audiences this, it's weird because it wasn't a sexual roller coaster. No. Like it was a Disneyland.
They're in their own little mind. Yeah. They're being dirty. Maybe she got, got some action once on a roller coaster and she's puts it. I do recall, I don't think I was there that night, but you did the roller coaster with a bunch of people. Right. And at the end, someone wasn't on the stage anymore?
That happened in D.C.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I do the roller coaster, real quick, this lady. So as funny as it was that a lady had a fake, on a fake ride, she had a real orgasm. Okay. That was funny to me. What was really funny, all the volunteers, all the other women on stage got really angry. Like all these other ones, like, well, I went on that ride. Let's do it again. I want her chair. And this woman's like, fuck you, it's my chair. And it became like a thing. So so the roller coaster, the way I do it, for whatever reason, I don't know why I chose to do it this way, but my back is to the volunteers. Okay. So I'm facing the audience. I'm in the front of the stage, and I try to kind of crouch down a little bit so the audience has good vision. And, I'm like, your cart banks to the right, it banks to the left, it banks to the right, it goes up, it goes down, there's bumps, blah, blah, blah. Well, the second time it goes right, then left, and right again, the guy on the far right side of the stage, launched himself off the stage. And I heard, the audience kind of, but I was so, into the ride, I didn't really kind of process that. Right. So the ride comes to an end, and I turn back to talk to the volunteers now, and there was an empty chair where the guy had been. And, in my head, I'm like, what happened? Yeah. So I go to the audience and go, did any of you see where that guy went off to? And I just heard a voice from under a table. It was like, I was thrown off the ride. And I went over there, and sure enough, this guy was on the floor, and his legs were crossed, and his arms were folded, and he looked pissed. And I just wanted to make sure he wasn't hurt. So I go, are you okay? And he looked me right in the eye, and I go, what happened? He goes, seatbelt broke. I don't know. But the cool thing is he didn't wake up from the hypnosis. He never once said I fell off the stage. He was like I was thrown from the ride. Right, yeah, no. Which is cool.
Better if he was calling his attorney to sue your amusement park. Yeah. I was at Flips Six Flags. Okay, so...
Although I will say this real quick, the only stage, well, that's not even true. The only person who's ever fallen off the stage during my show.
Oh yeah, I know who that is.
In Dallas was me.
Yeah, I got footage of that.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I posted it for God's sakes.
Yeah.
I was, it was in 2014, I remember, for a ton of reasons. But at that point, I think the Improv in Addison had cut the stage down a bunch.
Right, they cut off about 4 or 5 feet off the one side.
So I took a step where the stage used to be, and it wasn't there anymore.
Yeah, it turns out in the dark, it's really difficult to see that bottom. Yeah.
So I've got 15 or so volunteers hypnotized. They're out like light. Their eyes are closed. Their heads are slumped forward. And literally holding the microphone, I take a step straight off the stage, face first on the table, talking all the way down. Right. take the table out, dishes
Drinks.
fly.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
my God, it was nuts. So my face is wet. And when I fell off the stage, you could hear like 300 people, and I didn't lose a volunteer. Like not one woke up.
Pretty good about putting them down.
Oh, they were out like a light. So, and then this is horrible. So it's a podcast, so I guess I can say it. But so my biggest fear, because my face was wet, and I thought, am I cut?
Right.
Like, did something cut me?
Right.
And I thought, no, I don't think I'm cut. And then, but my face is wet. I must, because they hadn't pre-bussed the table, so there was a bunch of stuff on the table. I thought it must be a condiment.
Yeah.
You know, like I fell into a dish
Ranch or ketchup or something.
and that's what I was saying is, like, dear Lord, please don't let it be ranch or mayo.
Right.
You know, because when it got back up on stage, like I didn't want to look like I was the victim of a money shot.
Oh, yeah. That would have been hot.
I would just let you get on stage and go, oh, it burns my eye.
I see why. It's no good.
But it turns out it was ketchup.
Yeah.
So at that point when I got on stage, everyone thought I was hemorrhaging. and Ebony, who's the sound person at the time, came running up with gauze.
Okay.
Like, I don't know if you know that, but
Yeah.
like she was
Yeah.
like, oh my God. She ran up with gauze. I go, it's just ketchup.
It's just, I'm good. I'm good. Anybody got a French fry?
Exactly. And the audience was like still freaking out. And I go, look, people, I'm the one who fell off the stage. Pull your shit together.
Yeah,
I've got a show to do.
I'm okay. Let's go on with this show. Okay, so I remember years ago, there was a private party that came through the club.
Was it during a public show and it was just sort of a private party as part of that?
Amongst it, yeah.
I know where you're going.
And so from time to time, people rent the club or they buy a bunch of seats and they bring a group of people out. This particular night, we had a wonderful group from the YMCA show up.
About 25 to 30 people.
Yeah, about 25, 30 people to come see the hypnotist. You know, I don't know why they chose that show, but okay. And typically, the manager would tell you, hey, by the way, we have a private party, so you might want to make a mention of this company because they're paying us a shitload of money.
Absolutely.
Or they might tell you, hey, we got some slow individuals.
Well, they had some special needs.
Yeah,
I mean, and I'm not sure to what degree, but there were some special needs that the whole group, like all 25.
I was a
and then
server
the
at the time.
chaperones.
There were definitely different levels to it.
Right.
A bunch of them got up on stage and tried to get hypnotized.
I remember this vividly, and let me sort of set the backdrop. In the day,
Right.
the Addison Improv did 3 shows on Saturday.
Right.
It was like 7, 9, and 11.
Right.
And when you have one show, there's a lot of leeway sort of as how long your show goes. But on 2 show nights, and even more so on 3 show nights, especially the first show or the first 2 shows, you really have to be tight on time because they have to get people out, clean the room, bring in new people, and they don't want people waiting for like 45 minutes an hour past what should be showtime.
Right.
So there's not a lot of margin for error. And so I get to Addison, and nobody tells me there's this group, and nobody tells me there's a group with special needs.
Right. Oops.
I think that was probably an oversight.
A slight oversight.
So I didn't know, and it was the first show. It was like the 7 o'clock show, 6:30, 7 o'clock show, and like in the back of my mind, it's like I've got an hour 20 or an hour 30. Like that's the drop dead date to finish the show. And so so I asked for volunteers. I get a bunch of volunteers, and there's like 4 or 5 guys that are just not
cooperating.
Right. And so if you don't know there's special needs people in the audience, and it's a bar where people are drinking, you know, your first thought is they're probably drunk.
Yeah.
You know, why would you think anything else? So, and the early part of my show, if people are really, really, really distracting, they can ruin the show because at that point, nobody else is going to get hypnotized.
Right.
So, so I'm like doing these tests that are part of my early part of the show. It's like your eyes are locked shut and you can't open them. And you see these guys like popping their eyes open and closed and looking at their friends and laughing.
Right.
And I can kind of see it at the corner of my eye. And it looks like they're sort of playing to their group.
Right.
Right. And then I do a bit where your arm is stiff and straight and you can't bend your arm. And they're bending their arm, but they're doing it in sort of almost in a mocking way where they're mocking me. And the audience is laughing, and I don't have a hard time understanding why. Like, I get why they're laughing. But in the back of my mind is like, there's a good chance this show's going to go to hell, and there's going to come a point where I can't fix it.
Yeah.
And
you got people, and if I remember correctly, this was like sold out.
It was sold out. There was like 300 people.
And here it is, these people, unbeknownst to you, they're up there and they're potentially in your eyes, they're going to ruin this show for everybody.
For everyone.
And, you know, there's nothing worse than a hypnotist not getting anybody hypnotized. And
there's nowhere to go.
No, it tends to.
I mean, at that point, there's nowhere to go.
It's just back to that stand-up thing. So,
you know, which would have been fine, but it's kind of hard to retrench and sort of start over that way, especially when you're going, I've now got 45 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever it is.
Right.
So like nobody is coming, and I'm asking for help. I said, you know, there's guys clearly that are messing around, you know, and I think we can still salvage the show. So can someone help me get them off the stage? And nobody from their group, because they had 3 or 4 chaperones, nobody from their group came up, and nobody from the staff came up.
Yeah.
And then there came a point where I realized the show was just, it was over.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit bad.
And I looked at the audience, and I lost my temper, and I go, you know, here's the thing. If hypnosis is going to work, and I told you all early on, if people on stage are messing around, they could ruin the show, and it seems like nobody cares.
Right.
So for those of you who came here to see my show, I'm really sorry that I can't do for you what you came to see, because clearly nobody here, these guys up on stage who are messing around, and then the people at the club don't seem to really want to help me fix this.
Yeah.
So I guess we're screwed. And I was probably a little bit more pointed, and I was a little bit angry, and I was very embarrassed.
Yeah.
And then the manager, it wasn't you, was it you?
It was me. I was
you.
a server, and I brought you that note.
Yeah, it was a note, and the note, and I said, oh, hang on a second, this just in, and I'm pissed. So I stopped the show, and I looked at them and said, like, there's nothing we can do. The guys up on stage, you know, are special needs guys, and we don't know how to help you, you know. And I'm like, well, and I didn't read that because I didn't want to out anybody, but I just looked at that and go, oh, well, that explains a lot. Thank you. Good night.
Show was over. We're back in the improv.
And I walked out, and then I got so many horrible letters from the YMCA.
They were not
They were
happy.
mean.
Yeah,
they were so mean
it was
to me.
so from old management. I remember when the manager handed me the note. And he had this look on his face. It was Chris, and and Chris hands me this note. He goes, "Hey, go bring this up there." And at this time, I'm looking at it. I go, "Oh God!" Like, oh man.
And it's so funny because you specifically, but other people who worked at the Improv for the rest of the weekend just absolutely made fun of me.
Oh yeah, no,
the whole weekend long.
We talked about it for years, man. It was great.
But so okay, because you talked about this is some new comics might be listening or watching this.
Yes.
So here's a little hint. This is what I found. So, and I'll give you one more example, and then I'll sort of tie it up in a little bow. So I was doing a show once, and I don't remember where, but there was someone in the front row whose back was to me.
Okay.
Like they weren't looking at the stage.
Okay.
And it was kind of frustrating because, you know, I'm doing my show and I see this person and I see their back, and at some point I go, excuse me, sir, the stage is up here, excuse me.
Right.
Sir, the stage is up here. And then I go, fuck you, hey, fuck you, buddy, fuck you, buddy. And all of a sudden I saw him turn around like part way, and as he was turning around I could see that he was signing. And it turns out that he was a hired signer to sign my show for like 25 or 30 deaf people.
Yeah.
But nobody told me. No. And every time I was saying to him, fuck you, go fuck yourself. He's
fuck you.
So here's the thing. If something in your show, especially when you're new on stage, seems amiss, before you lose your temper and start yelling at people, realize there's more going on.
Right.
And maybe you just weren't told about it. And so, like, you know, this guy should have had his back to me because he was hired to do a job.
Yeah.
But nobody told me. I didn't know. And I mean, in Addison, a guy yelled something out at me, just loud, but I didn't hear what he said. But I knew he heckled me.
Right.
So I thought, well, I'm going to really set an example, and I'm going to make sure that nobody else heckles me. So I stopped my show for 3 minutes. I just insulted the shit out of this guy. They were funny, but they were mean comments. So I do my show, and I feel pretty proud of myself. It's like, you know what? People think I'm a hypnotist, but I'm a comic, and those were zingers.
I got him. Burned him. And his mom.
Burned him bad. So I got off stage, and the manager came running up and goes, hey, did you hear what the guy said to you when he yelled out? And I go, no, I didn't hear what he said, but he heckled me. And he goes, yeah, he yelled out, we love you, Flip.
Oh, wow. Lost a fan.
My bad.
My bad. No.
So I'm much less apt to lose my temper, and especially after the whole Michael Richards thing, the Kramer from Seinfeld.
I just went back and watched it again.
Yeah, it's brutal. Absolutely brutal.
Wow. He completely lost control of himself.
Because, I mean, I've never a racial slur, never this, never that, whatever. But even if you lose your temper, if someone edits that video a certain way, even if you're justified,
Right.
You're never going to look right once it's on YouTube or something else. Like you're going to look like an asshole.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can't take that stuff back.
Yeah.
You know, it's especially nowadays. Okay, so getting back to this show, which is Sean's Green Room.
Yep.
One of the things I like to ask is, why do they call the green room a green room?
You know what? I've
never looked it up. I don't want to.
I never have either, and so consequently, like, it's one of those things where, like, I've always wondered, but never enough to get from being lazy to actually checking into
Right.
it. And the other thing is, I mean, because we talked about this before, I think you and I, green rooms are really great places to hang out.
Yeah.
If there's other people to hang out with.
Okay.
So in other words, most comedy clubs do a 3-act show.
Right.
Some comics bring road managers and people to help them sell merchandise and you know, a posse and whatever.
Not Flip.
No, I
No.
do a one-man show.
Yeah.
And I don't travel with a group. So like when I go to a green room, I feel like I've kind of been in trouble, like I'm in a timeout.
Yeah.
So
You are, honestly.
frequently I am and deserve to be. So I don't spend a lot of time in a green room.
Okay.
And never have.
No.
So for me, the only time I've ever gone in green rooms really is when someone got really messed up being hypnotized, and I had to bring them somewhere to sort of wake them up better.
Right. Okay. But any idea why they call it a green room?
No.
What do you guess?
God, I mean, the most obvious of all is they used to be green, but I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's.
Do you have a thought?
I would say probably something in that area. My guess, one of the first green rooms. But then again, I don't even know where the first green room.
I don't
was
either.
that Shakespearean time they had a green room back there? It was, where the boys dressed up like girls, and because that's how they.
That's how they did
Yeah,
in the day.
I know. That's fact.
It's really funny because I always wonder about sort of the origin of things.
Right.
So one of the bits that I do on stage frequently is I get the volunteers talking, where they get random thoughts coming to mind. And like when you and I are talking right now, probably things are coming across your mind, like what question I want to ask next,
Right.
or where I'm going to go for dinner, whatever. People just have random thoughts. So I try to get people to sort of verbalize those never spoken thoughts.
Okay.
So last night on stage in Addison, this guy raises his hand. I go, yeah. He goes, where do pickles come from? I'm like, what? He goes, why pickles? Why would you take a cucumber and make it a pickle? And I looked at the audience. I go, that's really that's a good question.
Yeah.
If someone could Google that and then put it on Facebook and tag me, I'd sure appreciate it.
Yeah.
So sure enough, someone did that.
Okay.
So
and any particular good answer on that one?
yeah, 4,000 years ago, way back when, they wanted to preserve cucumbers, so they put it in this brine.
Okay.
And they didn't realize it was going to turn it into a pickle. So it was like 4,000 years ago. And evidently it was a big, like the fans of pickles early on. Cleopatra,
Wow.
Julius Caesar.
Yow.
Yeah.
Those are some names you're dropping over
I'm
there.
telling you,
I'll
so-
tag them on Facebook. Make sure that they see this.
I put that on Facebook, and I put that if you're at the show, you'll know why I'm putting this there. And if you weren't at my show, then this is just a fun fact.
Fun fact.
Fun fact.
Fun fact.
So now I'm going to actually ask people, I think, to Google where green room comes from. 'Cause I
There
don't
you
know.
go. Well, we'll see. We'll see what the magic comes. Okay. So in the game of comedy,
Yep.
comedians have to go from club to club
Yep.
across the country, or perhaps even around the world. We consider that the road.
Yeah.
In your business, I think you've been on the road once or twice, I would assume.
30 plus years.
Yeah. Any interesting or funny or crazy road stories?
I mean, they're all sort of weird. Like, so, there was a club in Baton Rouge called the Grin Room. Like
The Grin?
Grin.
Okay.
Right, because comedy clubs all have wacky names, you
Right.
know, like Bob's Chuckle Hut or whatever the hell it is.
Yuck yucks or something.
Yeah. So Yuck Yucks is Canada,
Right.
actually, so to speak. So, so I was working at this club called the Grin Room, and then I started getting calls from comics in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Every night I'd show up at the Grin Room. They go, hey, there's so-and-so on the phone for you. And I'd pick it up. And it literally, it was several calls all week long. And every comic was like, hey, by the way, just so you know, the club that you're working at is going out of business, on your last night. So get as much cash up front, get a draw. Because if you're working comedy, here's the way it works. You get your paycheck at the end of the week, but sometimes comics are sort of short on cash, and so they'll get sort of some draw against their final salary.
Essentially an advance.
Right, in advance, exactly. And so they're like, get as much as you can every night, because when the week ends, you're not going to get paid.
Yeah, it's very possible.
And it turns out that this club owner, the rumor has it, whether it's true or not, the rumor has it, he had put most of his club assets up his nose. in the way of drugs.
Okay.
And
I was just thinking he had enormous nostrils and he just like putting desks and tables in there.
He ate up through a lot of the
cartilage. Yeah.
So
there's a hole in the top of his
big.
mouth probably.
So every night I was asking for draw. I got 100 here, 100 there, whatever. And then sure enough, like at the end of the week, he stiffed me for about $2,000. And as I was leaving, they padlocked the door and that was it. Oh. But as bad as that is, and this has happened to a couple of friends of mine, because a lot of times a comic will buy their own airline ticket and they'll get it reimbursed later. And so I've had a few comics who have flown to a town to work a club, and it turns out like my Sunday night where the door was padlocked, that next Tuesday when the comics showed up, nobody told them. And on their own nickel, they flew to town and there was no club.
And they're probably stuck there for 3 or 4 days unless they
No
change
hotel.
their flight.
Yeah,
now they
yeah.
got to pay the change flight fee.
Oh, yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, no, that
Absolutely
doesn't
horrible.
sound fun at all. Oh, you poor guys. Okay, so you've hit quite a few venues. Obviously, you're like the number one hypnos.
In my mind, I am.
Oh, I think so. I mean, I don't book any other hypnotists because you're the top cream of the crop for mine. So, what is please don't say ours. What is your favorite comedy club? And if you don't want to answer that,
I will.
Okay. So, what's your favorite comedy club?
So over the years, I've had a lot of clubs that I've really loved, some that I haven't liked so much. But and this may sound like I'm kissing your ass, but I'm not, and I'll explain why. My 3 top favorite clubs. Okay. In no particular order, but are the Tempe Improv, the Addison Improv, the DC Improv. Okay. The reason why Addison to me is sort of a sentimental favorite is because I had spent years on stage working kind of B rooms, and I'd always wanted to work, like for me, the pinnacle was improvs. I had to get in the improvs, wanted to get in the improvs. And at one point I did a show at a very, very, very B to a C or a D room in San Diego. And at that time, the owner of the improvs, I had been trying to get in touch with him all the time. And his name was Mark Anderson, and I invited him to my show. And unbeknownst to me, he showed up in my show in this really B room. And then he contacted me like the next week. He goes, "I liked your show. Let's try you out in Addison." And so the first ever improv I worked was in Addison. And in fact, he goes, "Call this gal." Her name was Deborah Sartell.
Okay.
And she booked him. I go, "Deborah Sartell, I've tried contacting her before and she won't take my calls." He goes, "I own the club. She'll take your call."
Yeah.
And so I called Deborah and she set up a date in Addison. And this goes back to like 1991.
Yeah, I'm about to say this is.
And here's why I remember that. So I'd spent my entire career trying to get into the improv. I finally get the Addison Improv. I'm excited as anybody's business. During that period of time, the United States was sort of building up their military in the Middle East.
Okay.
Which was called at the time Desert Shield.
Desert Storm or
No,
Shield?
Shield.
Okay.
Shield. And so I was keeping an eye on it. I mean, a country could eventually go to war, whatever. And then my first night, I'm in Addison, I'm at the hotel, I'm taking a shower, and I have CNN in the background, and Bernard Shaw is going, "Oh, we're going to war. The United States is lobbing Tomahawk missiles off battleships, and the war has begun. It's no longer Desert Shield, it's now Desert Storm."
That's a cool name, though.
Very cool.
Storm.
But as a comic, like as a very self-absorbed comic, like, really? You couldn't do it next week?
You got Monday,
but
this
is my first improv. You couldn't wait like a couple more days.
Great. I'm going to sell tickets. Nobody's going to want me on the radio.
And it was horrible. And I didn't feel funny. I didn't think anybody was going to show up. It's like, how do you go on stage to try to make people laugh on the night where your country is now going to war?
Yeah.
And it was just, suddenly I realized, hey, people are dying. Like, this is less important.
Yeah, no, not as important as your ticket sales. I need to set an example for this weekend so I can get another club.
And then, honestly, so fast forward to September 11th.
Yeah.
I was booked into the Addison Improv the week of September 11th.
Yeah.
And
I think we postponed that weekend.
No, we did not.
I know we canceled like a couple. I don't
Canceled
know
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, that's right.
Canceled Tuesday, Wednesday, and maybe Thursday. And then I think it was Trey was talking to my manager, and he's like, we're doing shows like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And my manager's like, I don't think it's a good idea. And my manager talked to me, and it's like, I don't think it's a good idea. Like, I don't think we're ready.
Right.
This was just the first attack on United States.
What else is going to happen?
Since Pearl Harbor, for God's sakes. And then Trey said, my manager told me, Trey said something like, well, just have him fly here on Friday. And my manager said to Trey, it's like, skies are closed.
Yeah.
Like, no one's flying. Yeah. And we went round and round, and I finally said, okay. And then I live in Lafayette, Louisiana, so I drove the 6 hours. And I did shows like 3 days after 9/11, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Wow.
And felt horrible, until my first show. And I got off stage after the first show on Friday night. and almost everyone walked up to me, like from the audience, and they go, thank you for doing the show. And I go, well, you're welcome. They go, we haven't taken our eyes off the news, and we have had nothing to laugh about since 9/11, and it was really a nice relief.
Yeah, no, it's true. It is.
And at the time, I was really like, you know what? Credit to him. Trey was right. I was wrong.
Yeah.
I thought it was bad timing, but he nailed it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
there you go.
Every time you come to town, we go to war, by the way. So I got to quit doing this shit because we're way over budget on our military forces. Okay, so so as far as you've been doing this for a long time. Is there any particular food item or thing that you prefer from venues, from comedy clubs?
You know, yeah.
Because you don't have shit on your writer. Like,
no, I don't.
You know, I don't know if you have a writer in your contract.
I do, but I
don't
told
read it.
It's so funny you mentioned that. I was working at the...
And by the way, a writer is inside of a contract. It says all of his
The needs.
green room requirements and
Yeah.
things that he needs.
tech needs and personal needs and whatever it is. I was working at the Funny Bone in St. Louis, and one of the things I really do need is sound on stage for the volunteers to hear. So I need audio monitors,
Right.
if possible, so the volunteers can hear. And they didn't have them, and so I said to the manager of the club, I go, well, it's in my rider that I need sound on stage. And he started laughing, and he goes, we're a comedy club. We don't read that shit.
Yeah.
Really? Like, really?
Yeah.
And at that point, like, nobody takes it all that seriously.
No, we do. We just that particular place probably didn't care. I've seen some crazy shit on writers before. I've seen some very interesting items I had to find.
That you actually went out and looked for?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, Eddie Griffin back in the day, he had a specific pair of shoes that he wanted.
Who
And-
who would buy me shoes?
Well, if you put it in your contract.
Who
they'll
the
get
hell
you
would
damn
buy me shoes?
Are you wearing flip flops right now?
Because
anyways?
not a single comedy club has ever fucking bought me
I
a pair
feel
of
like I
shoes
gotta buy
ever.
you shoes now. it's
I don't
13 degrees
I
outside.
don't
and
like
he has
Nike.
flip-flops.
Just so you know, I will not wear Nike.
Okay, well, is
I
that because of the children putting together, or you just don't
No, I
like
don't care about
swishes?
that. No, I bought a pair of like $200 Air Jordans like 20 years ago, and they crippled me.
Okay.
They were horrible, and I just thought to myself, I'm never giving Nike another penny.
Not another dime.
Yeah,
Look what they did to my shin splints.
It was horrible. So here's the thing. Like I've got a really delicate stomach. So over the years, I've learned like really important things.
Okay.
Again, kids, if you're listening,
Yeah.
listen to your body, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I found out early on, if I ate Chinese food before shows and they had MSG in the food, like I would get really like cotton mouth, and then sometimes I'd sort of get like this salty kind of a like residue on my lips. And it's really unsightly.
So you look like Chappelle when he was doing the crackhead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, Chinese food is out. And then one time I had curry, like I had Indian food.
Why would you do that?
And it's like, okay, Indian food. And I love Indian food.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
But on show nights, that's out. Like if I can't have curry 24 hours.
That is
before it
a
comes.
complete gut game changer. It definitely changes your physical feelings.
it's horrible.
I love it. It tastes. Whew.
So typically, if I'm going to eat anything at clubs, and again, clubs now are much different than they used to be.
Okay.
So in the day, clubs were entertainment venues that had a restaurant.
Okay.
And so what they would do is it was mostly bar food, like the date plate with chicken strips and potato skins and whatever. And now a lot of comedy clubs are really very fine dining, really nice restaurants with really nice food items. Which, that's great. Make it a one-stop shopping, go out and have your night at the comedy club with really good food and whatnot. But, I guess it's just from years of doing it. If I'm going to eat, which is really rare that I do, it's usually chicken strips, French fries, and ranch.
Oh, that sounds like you're a
And it's-
rookie comic. That's the diet of a newbie.
But it sits okay in my stomach, and it doesn't mess my mouth up, and I don't have that, like, sort of Coke residue.
Hey,
And,
listen, I'm going to throw MSG on all your food and your cheese plate.
oh, it's the worst.
It's
the worst.
delish.
And my deal is because I don't do drugs.
Right.
But like I'm always worried because I'm in the entertainment business that people will naturally, first assumption is I do drugs. So every time I'm sitting there with either a sniffling nose because I've got allergies or I've got like that residue in my mouth, I've literally looked at the audience and go, I don't do drugs. Like this isn't a Coke involved issue. Like I don't do drugs.
I didn't know they have MSG in this.
Just so overly defensive. I was doing a show in Chicago at the Improv, and I didn't know it at the time, but I had an asthma attack.
Really?
Yeah, on
You,
stage.
you ever had one before?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
but
this
it's
was-
been a while, but like it had really subsided enough to the point where I stopped bringing an inhaler with me. And so it'd been long enough. So I've got these hypnotized people on stage, and all of a sudden, like I lost my breath and I couldn't breathe, and I started getting tunnel vision, and then I didn't know if I should stand or if I should sit because I knew I was going to hit the ground, and I was trying to figure out the most professional way to make that happen.
Yeah.
And I really muscled my but the whole while I said to the audience, it's like, I am not on drugs.
That's your concern. Not, hey, does anybody have one of thingies? No, I'm not on drugs.
So I finished the show. I mean, I don't know how I finished it, but I finished the show and I went back in the green room, and then someone from the audience came running in with an inhaler.
Okay.
And they go, dude, you had an asthma attack. I go, is that what it is? At that point, I still hadn't connected the dots.
Yeah, no, you're
But like in my head, my first thought is everyone's going to think I'm doing bad things.
Yeah, I'm not a bad guy. That's usually what I say on my first dates. I don't do drugs. Well, I mean, I drink.
I do drink.
Yeah.
I don't make any bones about that.
No.
But no, I'm drug free.
Okay, so before we wrap,
what? We're just getting started.
Yeah, we're always getting started. You got a lot of stuff to do today. You got shows tonight. You got to get mentally prepared, I'm assuming.
Oh, really? Like I do that at this point?
No, I don't.
Oh, by the way, kids, if you're up on stage and you're not really sure of what your set is, still don't make it look like you're reading notes. Unless you're doing an open mic night, which then maybe it's okay. But if you're doing a set, don't read notes.
Well, I mean, we could go. Okay, so let's talk a little bit for the kids. Okay, but then we'll wrap. So the ethics. Okay.
Yeah.
Etiquette. Rules. So what is something that you would say that you wish you had learned early on in the game in regards to behavior or attitude or any kind of etiquette or things that you learned maybe by seeing someone fuck up or perhaps you doing something and getting called out on it?
Okay, so I guess there's a bunch of things. First of all, a friend of mine early on gave me really good advice. And what he said is the ladder goes in both directions. And I go, what does that mean? And he goes, well, here's the takeaway. The takeaway is be nice to everyone.
Right.
And I go, okay. He goes, because when you're when your career's ascending, you sort of have the tendency to take yourself too seriously, and then you can sort of shit on people because you think you're a star, you think you're whatever. And he goes, but everyone's career sort of has that sort of peak. And then you start descending, and you kind of run into the same people.
Yeah.
And they remember. And so, and there's peaks and valleys, so you can sort of go up and then sort of go down and then go up and whatever, but you'll keep running into the same people. So it's just easier to be nice to people.
Yeah.
And then whether you see them again or not, I mean, just be a good person.
Be a good human, yeah.
Because the thing of it is, specifically being a comic, but being an actor, being a musician, being an athlete, it's just a job.
Yeah.
Like you
just got lucky enough to get this one.
You're lucky enough to do something that you can hopefully make a living doing, and in some cases a very good living that you enjoy. Hopefully that you enjoy doing. But you're just a person like everyone else. And quite frankly, when I go to any venue, comedy clubs, theaters, whatever, my attitude is we're all on the same team.
Yeah.
And the team really is that our entire focus is to give the people who are nice enough to come to the show a good experience.
Right.
So it's from the person who is in the ticket booth, to the person who seats the audience, to the cocktail server, to the food runner. Like, we're really all on the same team.
Yeah.
And if any one of those people sort of fucks with a customer, there's a chance that customer is going to have a really bad experience.
Yeah.
And it's going to sort of cascade into a bad night.
Absolutely.
So, like, I want the staff to get a lot of good tips because I want them to be happy the week that I'm there, and I want the club to make a ton of money, and I want to sell out the shows, and I want the audience to laugh their ass off for 2 hours.
Right.
Because it really is not a zero-sum game. There's not a winner and a loser. Either everyone wins or everyone loses.
Right.
And it's just so that's one thing. The other thing is, and this is what I've really found that aggravated the hell out of me, is that a lot of times, first of all, I don't like guest sets, don't believe in guest sets.
Okay.
And that may be unfair to someone who wants to get a guest set with the opportunity of maybe getting on
a real show or
a real show down the road.
Or being in one of your shows, hypothetically, in the future, too.
But the problem with guest sets that I don't like is that because they're there in their mind to audition for themselves, they don't care about the show.
Agreed.
And the audience is there for the show, right? They're there for the show, so it's just sort of an extra added whatever. Now, I'm not talking about if Dave Chappelle shows up and does a guest. I'm not talking.
Yeah,
like
we're not talking when you have an experienced guest. Right. I mean, I had Tim Allen walk in one night.
And how can you not put him up? Everybody wants to see Tim Allen or Dave Chappelle or Jerry Seinfeld or whomever. But the thing of it is, the way this show is supposed to work, especially with a 3-show act, is that the opening act is supposed to warm up the crowd for the middle act, the feature, who is then supposed to really get the audience laughing, having a good time, and set them up for the headliner. And I'm not saying that the opener or the middle has to take one for the team to make the other people shine.
Right.
But you don't go out of your way to fuck over the act going on after you.
Right.
And usually, like, openers do really work into middles, and middles work into headliners. But guest sets are sort of a wild card because they're there from themselves.
Yeah.
And they don't care about the show.
And sometimes they have very little experience because they're trying to get their foot in, and they just can't handle this particular audience.
Right.
You know?
And if they start panicking, or their material, it really isn't what the audience likes, or the audience doesn't mind their character, they can really sour a show and make it really hard for the other people to sort of
basically whoever comes on after the MC comes back, he has to fix that clusterfuck that guy just caused. Yeah. No, I've seen it.
You know, the thing of it is, and again, I mean, I get openers want a middle, and middles want a headline, and headliners don't want to have people mess with their show. Like, everybody sort of has their own agenda. But really, when you look at it, it's not that one person. It's a show, and everybody is working together as a team on that show to make it the best night possible for the audience.
Exactly. So with you, it'd be fucking impossible to put a guest spot. When was the last time you had another person on your show?
God, it's been years. But part of the reason why it's been years, and this has happened before in the earlier days. Comedy clubs is like, I get you do a long show, but like, my audience is used to having like a 3-act show, so I have to put at least someone else on there. And then a lot of times they wouldn't want to pay a decent comic because they knew I did a long show, so they just wanted someone to fill the time.
Right.
And they made my job a lot harder. So this I was doing a show in Mississippi. It was called the Comedy Barn.
Okay.
And it looked like a comedy barn. But I loved the club. Actually, it was a lot of fun. I worked there a lot. And they hired this guy, and he walked up to me before the show, and he goes, "You're the headliner." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I've got a problem." I go, What's your problem?" He goes, "I've always been told that you're supposed to start strong and end strong. And then the middle, you have some flexibility." I go, "Okay."
Okay.
And then he told me the joke, and the punchline to the joke was he found corn in his shit. That was the punchline.
Oh, this is a good bit, I bet.
And he goes, "I don't know if I should open with it or close with it. Like, that's my strongest one, so do I open or close?" And I go, "Well, that's not your problem." And he goes, "What's my problem?" I go, "Your problem is you don't belong on stage.
Yeah.
Like, you should be going up there."
Shit joke. I mean, like it's a shit joke.
And he opened with it, and the audience hated it. And then he panicked, like, you could see the flop sweat. And then he got mad, and he did like 15 minutes of just pissing off the audience.
Oh, was he funny at least then?
No. No.
I mean, at least if you're going to go off, I mean, you can, start yelling at somebody, especially when they're like, "We love you, Flip." And you're like, "Go fuck yourself, you fucking
It
cow."
really was that. And like, evidently the guy was like big smiles, and all of a sudden the smile started fading. And it's like, I guess I've messed up.
He writes your name with lipstick on a piece of paper.
So, I mean, it was just the weirdest deal. And so I told the club after that, I go, "Look, I'm here for the rest of the week. You can't have that guy go on anymore." Like, he actually makes the show less successful. And they acquiesced, and they actually took him off the bill.
Good. Well, then you got to your one-man act again. So
here's the deal. I think that, opening strong and closing strong is important. You have some flexibility to try new jokes out in the middle. If your best joke is you found corn in your shit, then write new material or find another career.
See, I look at it as if a comic is going up on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, my real shows.
Right.
I don't want you working on shit.
No.
This is where you're bringing out the polished material. Maybe if you're the headliner and you have more time and you're, funny enough that you have,
and that's how it works.
You can play with your material.
Right.
But as far as my MCs and features, no, I that is not where you practice a joke.
Right.
Maybe practice a tag on a bit, perhaps.
Sure.
But there's no. But then again, I got a pile of amazing comics in the DFW, more or less across the state. So I really don't have a problem with funny people. Now, okay, so I do remember one of the questions that someone had posed up. They wanted to find out: is there an ideal size for your audience for you to have a good show? Because I've seen you have an amazing show with like 2 people on stage,
right?
But like, what is your minimum amount of people in the audience for you to be like, okay, the show's gonna work? But I know there's probably times where you might have gone in and we got a snowstorm, we got 30 people now. Is there a number where you're going like, shit, like?
So here's the hypothetical answer,
okay,
and then here's the real answer.
Okay.
hypothetically, I want to sell it. Right. So hypothetically, if the room seats 300, I want 280 to 300.
Right.
You know, if the room seats 500, I want like 450 to 520. You know, whatever it is. But here's what I've discovered over the years. And in fact, what really brought this home to me was the Addison Improv.
Okay.
Right?
We're really good about rubbing people and
Honestly, this club has taught me more probably about comedy than maybe any other place I've ever been.
Okay.
So, and you know, for instance, I told you that after 9/11, you know, Trey was very insistent that I did shows. I thought I was wrong. It turns out he was right. So, here's the deal as a comic, and especially more so as a hypnotist because I take volunteers on stage. One night they were going to do a show when the Cowboys, I think, were in the Super Bowl.
Okay.
It was definitely either a playoff game, but I think it was the Super Bowl. And I told Addison they were wrong. And they said, we're doing it. And I said, you're wrong. And they said, it's part of your contract. We're doing it.
They read your contract, sunshine.
Yeah. And so I think that night we had I want to say 30 people in the audience.
Okay.
And I'm not going to lie. You know, I mean, I was kind of shitting bricks, you know, about that. And here's what I learned that night. Those 30-ish people who live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, whose Dallas team was in the playoffs or the Super Bowl, all knew that Dallas was in the playoffs or the Super Bowl.
Right.
Like that escaped no one.
Right.
So they came to the Improv because that's where they wanted to be.
True.
And they were in a good mood and they had a good attitude. And I probably got like 6 volunteers. Of the 6, I got like 4 or 5 hypnotized, and it was a great show.
Right.
And what that taught me was, although I want 300 people, I'd rather have 40 people with a great attitude than 300 people who are drunk, don't know where they are, don't want to be there, they're busy talking, they're on their phones. Because even though a sellout looks better, I'm going to do a better show with people who are there because that's where they want to be.
Yeah, I think that's what every comedy fan would, or a comedy comedian.
And the other thing is, I've seen comics. Hey kids,
yeah.
Here's another thing.
Ding dong.
If you go do a show and you don't have good ticket sales on that night or even that week, I know where it's disappointing and you're worried about getting another booking and you can get frustrated, even mad, right? Here's what makes no sense. If you have 50 people in a showroom that seats 300 and you're pissed, why take it out on the people who actually showed up?
Yeah.
You know, be pissed at the 250 who didn't show up, but don't take it out on the 50 who actually took time out of their lives and money out of their pockets to come see you.
Yeah.
So give them the best show you can.
Yeah.
Because, you know what? I saw Cheap Trick in Lafayette, Louisiana, and it was well after like Live at Budokan and blah, 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 whatever the case may be. And they were working at a club that was like a 500-seater, and the night of the show, they had sold like 50 seats.
Okay.
And the radio station was giving away tickets to anybody who would show up.
Okay.
And so I went, and there were like 200 people in a 500-seater. And Cheap Trick played like it was Live at Budokan. Like I walked away with my jaw agape.
Okay.
Because they played like they wanted everyone who came there to get the best show they could possibly give. And they didn't give a shit if it wasn't like a 30,000-seat arena. That's how they played it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, to me, that stuck with me and will stick with me forever. On the other side, I saw, who Stevie Ray Vaughan's brother's name is? Ricky, not Ricky.
Something Vaughn.
Yeah, but he played with a band. I can't think of the name of the band.
Right.
But it was Stevie Ray Vaughan's brother,
right.
And it was some band. And they played at the Cajun Heartland State Fair in Lafayette, Louisiana.
Okay.
And they phoned it in. Like they didn't want to be there. They didn't want to be in Lafayette, bullshit, Louisiana, and they didn't want to work at a fair. And it was really clear they didn't want to be there. And I'm juxtaposing their attitude and their stage performance, stage presence
with all these people,
you know,
that bought tickets.
Yeah, versus Cheap Trick, who had people coming in for free and still couldn't fill the place, and they still played like it was Live at Budokan.
Right.
It's like, well, if that doesn't tell you the difference between professional and not professional, I don't know what does.
No, it's very true. Very true. Okay, so now we'll wrap. But so you said that you wanted to be a comic when you were 5, 6 years old.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you recall the first joke or bit that you did in front of an audience that they laughed and you realized, holy shit, I am a comic?
Yeah.
Okay, what was it?
So the first time I got on stage ever, a friend of mine in California told me that I could get up to do an open mic night at the Comedy Store in La Jolla, California.
Okay.
Like I'm 18 years old, I'm at the University of Arizona, and I went to California, and I got on. And I got like 5 minutes, and I did 2 nights in a row. And And I mean, honestly, for no experience, at least at the time, it felt like I had done really well. And it gave me like the good and bad was it gave me the confidence to keep doing it because I fell in love. But the bad thing is it gave me overconfidence because I really did suck, but I didn't know it at the time.
Okay.
But I really sucked.
Okay.
But I didn't know it. But it gave me the confidence to really suck a bunch after that to keep going because I still, in my mind, I remember those really couple good sets. And there was two things that I did. One was stupid. Well, they were both stupid, but one was untrue and one was true. And the untrue one was basically, and I'm going to paraphrase them, that Phoenix has the thinnest people in America. And the reason is someone had developed the Phoenix car diet. And what that meant was that you could open up or take your hood off the car, and when you're driving home from work, you could put like a roast on the engine block, and then the 120-degree heat would sort of cook it up. Okay. And then you roll your windows up in your car, and you don't put on the air conditioning, so you really sweat it out. And then by the time you get home, you have a lovely dinner.
Okay.
Stupid,
yeah,
but it did really well.
They liked it.
So the other one was, and present company's not going to love this, but so I was dating a girl when I was 16 years old. And we got frisky one night in her car.
Okay.
Now I'm 6'2", and so she drove like a VW Beetle or whatever. So we're in the front seat and we're getting frisky, and because I was sort of crinkled up because I didn't fit, and partway through this intimate moment, my calf balled up. Like I got this, not even just a Charlie horse, but you know when your muscle balls up. And it hurt so bad so quickly that I lurched up, and then I hit the steering wheel really hard, and then I couldn't talk because like I was in massive amounts of pain. Right. So I'm fully involved with this girl, and I'm like ah, and she started whispering in my ear, "Me too." So those were the two things that people were like, oh, that's really cute.
Good. Okay, give it up for Flip Orley and his three-piece suit and glasses.
Yeah, you can quit your day job. So, but those were the two things. And then I went back to Phoenix, Arizona, and I got a job. I got like an open mic night at Chuckles, and I was cocky as shit, right?
Oh,
and so
I got back from Comedy Store
from California. Yeah. So I invite like everyone I know, people I like, people I don't like. I invite my parents, and I get up on stage and I ate shit for 5 minutes. Good. There wasn't a laugh. Good. You could hear a pin drop. I mean, holy shit! My parents, like after that set at Chuckles, they called me up. They go, like, before we come see you again, you'll have to send us an audition tape.
Oh my god!
It was horrible.
Like, your parents asked for a refund on their tickets.
Yeah,
like, nah. Well, Flip Orley, it's always a pleasure to see you. I'm a big fan, and consider you a friend.
Don't consider me. We are friends.
I know we are friends. Yeah, we talk all the time.
Not as much as we should.
I know. Good news. We're hanging out today. So, well, thanks for coming to the show. I look forward to having you back someday.
Anytime you want. And the one thing, whether my comments or stories are interesting or not, I don't give one-word answers. So there'll always be a conversation.
No, never does. No. Okay, Flip. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.